Good afternoon, Messiah. My name is Hassani Hayden, and I will be introducing Mr. Larry Johnson, the Assistant Superintendent, Executive Director of Public Safety and Security. Mr. Larry received his Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice from Grand Valley State University in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and his Master's degree in Police Administration from Ferris State University. Currently, he is pursuing a doctoral degree in Educational Leadership. Larry is a former Benton Harbor, Michigan, Lansing, Michigan, and retired Grand Rapids, Michigan police officer. He was also a police sergeant with the Grand Rapids Police Department. While working for the Grand Rapids Police Department, Larry worked in the department's Vice Unit, Recruiting and Training Unit, and was a supervisor of the Gang Intelligence and Special Response SWAT team. Throughout his professional career, Larry has received many awards for his actions, including the Grand Rapids Police Most Prestigious Award, the Meritorious Service Award for his actions in December of 1995 while involved in an undercover drug operation. Larry Johnson was appointed Executive Director of Public Safety and School Security of the Grand Rapids Public Schools on August 15, 1997. Larry is responsible for a department that consists of 15 sworn police officers and 25 security officers. Larry attended the United States Secret Service National Threat Assessment Program. Larry was one of 24 individuals in the nation to attend this program, which is aimed at reducing the amount of targeted school violence in our national schools. He is also a graduate of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's National Academy 218th session in Quantico, Virginia. Larry has written several articles that have been published nationally on the issue of school safety and security and spends hundreds of hours studying and researching the causes of violence in schools. He is a sought-after expert in the area of school safety and security. He has traveled throughout the nation to participate in national training conferences as well as speak on school safety issues. He has also served as a consultant to a number of school districts on school safety issues. He is very highly knowledgeable as it relates to school culture, climate, and creating and maintaining a safe school environment. In support of Superintendent Neal's academic plan, he is currently overseeing school safety and security issues, including emergency response and crisis management, bomb threats, and safety and security training for teachers, administrators, and support staff. Recently, he was given additional responsibilities in managing the district's management information systems, risk management, EEOC, FERPA, Freedom of Information, and Internal Investigations divisions. Mr. Johnson is working with his team to provide excellent customer service, provide updated and quality technology for all students, to be responsive to the needs of the community and district by being transparent in all of the departments in which he manages by eliminating barriers and impact learning. Larry is married and is the father of 3 children. Mr. Larry Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you. I have the microphone. Thank you very much. Great job. Why don't you stand up for a minute and just let the blood flow, get the blood flowing again. You've been sitting for a few seconds, and I know it's kind of hard to sit down. Pastor, how you doing? How you feeling? Great. I know sometimes it's kind of hard to just stretch a little bit, get the blood flowing, then you can sit back down. I'm going to cut my program short in the interest of time because I know sometimes getting young people into a building is tough enough. And then when we prolong it a little bit, they kind of lose them. But I'm going to hit the key points that I need to hit. You can go ahead and sit back down. I'm going to hit the key points that I need to hit with the young people, and then we're going to get the panel discussion going to give them an opportunity to get involved. Is that okay? Yeah. Good. First of all, I'm just humbled to be here. Humbled to anything, a lot of opportunities to talk about what you believe in. I think those individuals that really know me that I am a believer. And I believe that the God has really been ordering my footsteps and everything that I do, and been truly blessed. My family has been blessed in all that we have done. But we didn't get here, and I didn't get here lightly. And I just want to share a story, and I encourage the young people and the parents downstairs. There's some bullying pamphlets that we put together, and we would love for you to take one of these free. It has some good bullet points in here that would we think that could help you, put you on the track to be able to identify some strategies and some issues around bullying, because bullying is real, folks. And for our adults, it's no longer sticks and stones will break our bones, and words will never hurt us. It has gone deeper than that, and it has caused some of our young people to make some tremendous mistakes inside of their lives, some of them even taking lives. So just briefly, and I won't talk about myself a lot, but I think it's important for you to understand where I've been to understand where I'm trying to go. with my career and with my family. I hail from the east side of the state, out of a little small town called River Rouge, Michigan. And I've been over here most of my life now. I come over here to go to college. I really came over here to save my life. That's really why I came. I didn't initially go to college because I really wanted to be in college. I went to college because I needed to get away from some of my buddies on the corner. All right. That's why I went. And I witnessed my first homicide, unfortunately, at the age of 13. I watched a neighbor get killed. And so when you're growing up in the down, they call it the downriver area of Detroit, you sometimes see a lot of crazy stuff happening. You think it's just in the big cities, but sometimes what happens in the big cities, the small communities, is nothing more than a microcosm of those cities. And what happens, it impacts us all. So I witnessed my first homicide at 13. I would then lose a good friend at the age of 17 years old. His name was Chris Washington. And I tell the story of Chris Washington because it's important for young people to understand the importance of following your parents' rules. I grew up in a single, for the most part, in a single parent home, and although my father was involved in my life, my mother and father divorced when I was very young, and so at about 5 years old. So for the most part of my teenage years, I grew up without a father in the house. I didn't have any older brothers. 3 of my siblings have passed. My only younger brother has passed. And so my mother used to always give us these instructions about being home before the street lights come on. If you haven't left the house by 10 o'clock, you can't go. If you go out on Saturday night, you got to go to church on Sunday morning and Sunday school. And so we would have all those instructions, and I was just, hard-headed sometimes and try to sneak out the house all the time. So my friend and I, Chris Washington, we knew the rules, and Chris lived directly across the street from me, and Chris was 1 year older than I. And so Chris and I was hanging out in a town called Ecorse, Michigan, which is right across the street from where I grew up. And we was hanging out with some girls, and one of the houses we were hanging out at, it was a young lady who, again, was a couple years older than us, and she had her own apartment. So we was kind of hanging there, and a man came to the house and told us we had to leave. And unbeknownst to her, to us, it was her boyfriend. And so Chris said, "We're not leaving." And I said, well, we probably should, man. This ain't pretty, So we decided to stay a little longer, and he was really adamant that we leave. And he said that if we came back, he would kill us. And so that was my invitation to leave at that point, and we left. And we went home, and we got home at about 11 o'clock. Remember, my mother's rule, if you was not out by 10, if you didn't leave the house, if you couldn't go back out of the house after 10 o'clock once you came in. That was just the rule. If you needed to be wherever you wanted to be before 10 o'clock, and you needed to be home by midnight, depending on your age in my family. And I was number 5 of 6. And I watched Chris walk into the house at about 11:30. And I went into the house at 11:30, and I figured that was the end of the night. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, my mother woke me up, and she told me that Chris had been killed because Chris went back. Chris went back to the house where the one young lady was, and the man shot him in the heart and killed him. And so I realized then that, if we don't really, follow what's going on in our lives and follow those adults in our lives that really try to instill some good things in us, some tragic things could happen for us. I would go on and try to make some other good decisions in my life. I was a paper boy. I tried to do all the right things, trying to make some money as a young kid, shovel snow. I was over there talking to Reverend Bishop about shoveling snow and cutting grass. He said, "You probably got a lawn service." I said, "No, man, I still cut my own grass and shovel my snow." I said, "I still do all that kind of stuff," because I was really listening to Dr. Logan talk about blood pressure and all that. And I fortunately or unfortunately had a heart scare about 3 years ago. I was in the hospital. And for just a brief time, but I understood that if I don't take care of myself and take care of my body, that I probably won't be here very long, just based on family history. And so I've lost. I'm sorry she left, but I've lost 42 pounds by changing my lifestyle. And so, and no high blood pressure, no cholesterol. So just not being hard-headed and changing lifestyles. So I fast forward, and as a young paper boy, bullying entered my life pretty early. When I was about the 7th or 8th grade, I would get robbed all the time on my paper route. I had these cats from, you laughing, but you know what? It's okay to laugh because I overcame it, and I'm going to tell you how to overcome it because I laughed too at first. Every time I would deliver papers, the guy would know, these guys from Ecorse, Michigan would know that every collection day they would meet me on my route and they would take my money from me. And it wasn't a robbery with a weapon. It was just intimidation. It was extortion. It was bullying. And this would go on and on and on for almost a year before I said anything to anybody. Again, I didn't have any older brothers. My father wasn't there every day. I didn't have any uncles. So it was just me. But there was a guy on my block that saw something happen to me one day. His name was Charles Thomas. And Charles was one of the neighborhood thugs that looked out for the little kids. He provided safe passage. And sometimes all we need is safe passage in our neighborhoods to get from point A to point B so that we don't get caught up in some mess. And Charles saw the guys taking my money one day and called me over and asked me, hey, what's going on with this? You giving these guys this money? So I finally shared my story with Charles that I was getting robbed. And Charles had a conversation with these guys. And what he said to them, I don't know. But I didn't lose any more money on the paper route anymore. And so didn't lose that. And so I started making some right decisions. And about when I graduated from high school, there were some choices that we can make. And Kyle was from the Detroit area, so he knew there were some good choices. You can go into the factory and make some good money. Many of our friends went off to the military, and the other choice was to go to college. But parents said you couldn't stay here and do nothing. You just couldn't lay around and do nothing. I chose to go to college. I had a sister who was very sick attending Grand Valley, and I needed to get away from Detroit, and so I went to Allendale, Michigan. And Grand Valley wasn't grand at that point. It was just a couple buildings out in the country, and it was a valley. And a field was out there with us, you know. So I went out to Grand Valley and got into a criminal justice program. And really did not want to be a police officer at all. Wanted to work probation parole. And then at my senior year, the young lady that I was dating at that time was a year behind me. And so I wanted to stay in school an extra semester to hang out with her. So I convinced my mother to pay for me to go to the police academy. Not that I wanted to be a police officer, I just wanted to be on campus. And so I stayed for another semester, and got certified as a police officer, and you know what? It was the best mistake, a choice that I made in my life. It was not, and I say that because we don't always know where God's going to take our paths, and we have these plans laid out for us, and sometimes He takes us in a total different direction. So He gave me an opportunity to work in some great communities, and He led me back to Grand Rapids, and He put me in the police department in Grand Rapids, and He eventually put me out on the street. But He always kept me safe. He always kept me in harm's way. And in December 1995, I nearly lost my life out here on these streets. And it was at that point that I made a career decision that would lead me to you today, almost 19 years ago. The corner Union and Thomas, working an undercover drug operation. I had a 17-year-old kid shoot at me 5 times from about 25 feet away and miss all 5 times. Some of you may remember the story. 17 years old, facing life in prison until I stood up in front of the judge and I said, this kid don't need to go to jail for life. Daryl, you was on the police department then. This kid doesn't need to go to jail. This kid is too young. I realized then, and I said to the chief for Haggerty at that time, you know, we are locking too many kids up in this community. And just suspensions in schools does not solve anything. Incarceration, for the most part, does not solve anything when these kids are 16, 17 years old. And although I truly believe in the law, and I truly believe that people must make the right decisions, we will never arrest our way out of some problems inside of our community. We will never suspend our way out of problems inside of the school. We have to take a different approach. It has to be education, prevention, and intervention before apprehension. And that's how we have to focus. So that's why I'm here to talk about bullying today. Because bullying is one of those education, prevention, and intervention things that we must drill into our young people's heads and get them not to be afraid to come and tell someone when they're being tormented in schools and tormented in the community. And folks, bullying starts at the very, very, very young age. We can show it to you. We can show you videos of young kids in 1st grade and 2nd grade bullying kids on the playground. We're not going to bore you with a whole bunch of slides today, but I want to point out some statistics for you around bullying. Bullying is the most common form of violence in our society. Between 15 and 30% of students are bullied or victims of bullying. And there's 3 aspects of bullying: the bully, the victim, and the bystander. And the bystander we'll talk about briefly is the person that can make the biggest change in what's going on in our communities, but for whatever reason, they have not chosen to do it at this point. Between 1994 and 1999, 253 violent deaths in schools, 51 casualties were the result of multiple death events. Bullying is often a factor in school-related deaths. We look at all of these events that we look at. See, we talk to you about school violence, and we talk to you about Columbine and Pearl and Paducah, Kentucky, and Pearl, Mississippi, and Moses Lake, Washington. The list goes on and on and on, when in fact, black kids have been getting killed in the neighborhoods as it relates to bullying for years. And I'm not undermining what has happened at some of the schools across the country. I'm trying to get you tuned in to know that there's an underlying problem in all of these issues that's going on inside our communities. In 1999, which was one of the highest years of death in our schools, about 35, the largest number of deaths in a school year, and that has risen now. There was an underlying problem that we did not want to get our hands around, and it was related to everything else that had happened inside of the school. Injuries, larcenies, fights, assaults, disorderly conduct, disruptive behavior, however you want to call it, all the suspensions were related to one issue and one issue alone, and that was the 18 million cases of bullying that go unreported inside our communities on a daily basis. On average, 160,000 kids will miss school because of bullying. It is a crisis in our community, a crisis in the black community, and there is a reason it is occurring, and there's a reason, and there's a way to stop it. And the way to stop it is first to educate ourselves in terms of just what it is inside of our communities. You know, if you're a book reader, there's a book called Fist, Stick, Knife, Gun by Jeffrey Canada. Jeffrey Canada was a fabric individual who helped to create the Harlem Children's Zone and really block by block change a community. That's why I believe that when people say that schools can't be changed or the communities can't be changed, I say go talk to Jeffrey Canada and tell him that in Harlem. Because if they can do it in Harlem, they can do it anywhere. And what we have to, and we're not going to stop bullying as a whole overnight. But what we can do is child by child, house by house, family by family, church by church, because that's the missing ingredient, church by church, school by school, we can begin to change what's really happening inside of our communities. And we have to stand up and not be afraid to say it's a problem. Why are these kids bullying? Why are they bullying? Well, let's go to the family factors. There's a lot of stuff, and Rondo Cooper was in front of you this morning talking about dysfunctional families. There's a lot of stuff going on inside of our families right now that we need to get our hands around. These Hatfield and McCoy type feuds that's been going on in our community for the last 10, 20 years. Someone over here gets shot or killed, and then someone feels like they got to redeem that by doing it on this side. That's nonsense because no one knows why they're shooting and killing each other. Family factors plays a huge role in why young people are committing serious violent offenses. But here's where the schools have failed us. And I'll say this if my boss was here, if the board was here, as anyone. I've said it privately and I'll say it publicly. Here's where we failed in schools. For every one major incident that one of our young kids become involved in and get arrested and end up in the system, the juvenile system or the adult system, there has been about 7 minor offenses that have gone unreported inside a school. So there's some early indicators. And I know there's some teachers in here, some retired administrators, and they can tell you, sometimes it's 1 and 2% of the kids create 98% of the problems for us. All relate back to bullying, acting a fool up in the school. School factors. Because school personnel often ignore bullying, children can be reinforced for intimidating others. Bullying thrives in the school environment when it's not dealt with. Thrives in the school environment. And the older the kids get and it's not dealt with, the more chances there's going to be bullying. We allow it in athletic programs. Yeah, we do. We call it rituals. Hazing is what it is. We allow it when our 5th graders become 6th graders. When our 8th graders become 9th graders, we have these rituals that we put kids through. And the adults know about it. Oh, that's just the football team. That's just what they go through. That's just the band. That's just what they go through. Until somebody loses their life. Until someone loses their life. And then the peer group. Kids bully because of their peer groups, because they see someone else doing something they shouldn't be doing, and then they do it. Everyone's afraid to walk away from it. I guarantee you, I can tell you story after story and time after time, and I know Jerry and Phil and Kyle and many others in here can probably tell you the story. Had we not been afraid to walk away from some stuff, we'd probably be locked up or dead. And so the power comes from the person, your life, your power. The power comes from the individual not being afraid to walk away and says, I'm not doing that anymore. You know, I used to escape a lot of times, Phil, when I was hanging with my frat brothers when they doing crazy stuff in college. I would always say, well, I'm going to hang out with Tina. And after a while, they say, you coming back? I'll be back. But I never went back. So after a while, they just stopped asking. They said, well, he's just going to hang out with Tina. Because sometimes when you know folks doing something they shouldn't be doing, at some point, you just got to walk away from it. I call it, Trey, get out the car. Amen. Trey, get out the car. And if you're familiar with what I'm talking about the movie Boys in the Hood, when Trey has to make a decision to go be a murderer or get his butt out the car based on some nonsense. And that's what I tell my own son. You got to know when to get out the car, man. You got to know when you got to tell your friends, I ain't got no gas, we can't go there. You got to know to say, this is just a bad decision, bro. We ain't doing it. Somebody got to be able to stand up and walk away from it. Parents, let me sidetrack for a minute and tell you some other things you need to be doing, because recently we had an issue in our community when a person made a bad decision and brought a weapon to school. You know, if you're a parent and you got a young man or a young daughter living in your house and you ain't checking their room, all the stuff parents talking about, that's their room, I don't search it, you making a big mistake. Toss that room. Turn those dresser drawers out, look in that closet, and when they come running in the house and run straight upstairs, you need to follow them, because they up to something. Be a parent and stop trying to be their friend, and you'll stop some of these problems. So let's look at the bully. To the bully it's a form of entertainment. They really get their kicks out of harassing other individuals and taking them out their comfort zone. The bully can be anybody in school. The bully can be the star quarterback, captain of the cheerleading squad, or it can be the mild, meek person that kind of slides up under the chair and no one really picks up on them. The bully can be the adult. And that's right, sometimes adults, bosses, teachers, principals, and sometimes assistant superintendents, we can be the bully too. Many times the bully is a victim somewhere else. It's just a behavior that's being perpetuated, that's being carried on. A bully was typically a person that was bullied sometime in their life, and they didn't get the assistance or the help that they needed. There was no intervention. He or she can have multiple victims. It's not just one or two individuals that they're picking on, but it's a multitude of individuals. And sometimes they try to pull other people in with them to get them to choose to pick on an individual as well. Bullying can look different based on your gender, your sex, your race. It can look totally different, but it is what it is. It's bullying. The next one is the victims. And many times, victims are very passive, and we're very reactive to things. As a young paper boy, I was kind of passive. I didn't like, I don't like conflict. And it's kind of crazy when you say, this guy had been a police officer, he worked in law enforcement all these years, but I really do not like conflict. And so sometimes when you become passive, individuals take advantage of that. And what happens to the victim, if the behaviors are not dealt with, or they become so passive, they will let it all build up into them, and then they will explode. They will explode, and somebody gets hurt. Or they put themselves in a position where they end up getting kicked out of school or catch a case, as the kids would call it, because of their antisocial or negative behavior that they committed inside the community. Often victims will try to avoid the bully. I did everything I could to avoid them guys on that paper route. I would get out of school early to try to deliver my papers early. I would try to get some of my friends to go with me. I would wait till it was late. I didn't think they was going to be out there. And they didn't care if I came down the street Monday through Friday. They wanted to get me on Saturday, when that's collection day. It's collection day. And they had it all mapped out. They had a plan. And I kept trying to get a better plan, and they kept getting my plan. So I had to get somebody to intervene. I had to get someone to intervene. Again, sometimes we will act out violently. And don't think it didn't cross my mind. Don't think it didn't cross my mind to do something to these guys to keep them from coming at me. and taking my money, those thoughts will go through your head. That's a natural process. That's a natural thought when someone is putting a lot of pressure on you, how you react to it. So we got to be very careful with our victims, and we have to embrace the victim. We have to make the victim feel very important. We have to show them that they're loved. We have to show them that there is hope. And then when we promise them something that they're going to take care of the problem, we got to take care of the problem, Lindsay. We can't give them false hope. We can't promise them something that we can't do. We have to give them some hope to be able to do something different. Then there's the most powerful individual in all of this bullying stuff in our community, and that's the bystander. That's the bystander. That is the individual who can really make a difference in the bully's or the victim's life. As they age, bystanders don't like the bullies either. They get tired of it. They get tired of people picking on the same folks and just bullying and bullying and bullying. They get tired of it and they try to break away. Bystanders may not know how to respond, and that's why they don't do anything early in the game. One of the problems with bystanders is they want to be part of the crew. They don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to be the stand-up person. So because of that, they stay connected with those individuals. And they give the bully power by just being there. They don't have to say a word by just being there. If you're the big guy on the block and everybody respects you and you standing next to the bully, they're going to think you're part of the problem as well. They may become active participants in the behavior. You know what? Hazing gets out of control. You get one or two clowns acting a fool, and then you got a person over here who's just a bystander who really don't want to be involved in it, but get pulled into it because everybody else did it. They get pulled into it. Bystanders have the power to reduce bullying. Some bystanders can suffer long-term consequences. PTSD is real. Post-traumatic stress syndromes. The inability to trust individuals down the road. There's long-term consequences that bystanders and victims of bullying can have. And I know there's some clinical people in here today, and I'm not a clinician at all, but there's some clinical people in here that can go down the list. All the behaviors that can happen to you and what with the aftermath of bullying and not being taken care of at such a young age. I'm going to transition a little bit in the interest of time and talk a little bit about one of the biggest problems that's going on in our community, and that is electronic bullying. Texting and sexting. And there's a way to end it, parents. Just take your kid's device from them. Shut off their phone. Turn off the internet. I'm 7 years old, parents telling me we can't control our kids and what they send across the internet. Yes, you can. Unplug the computer. Real simple. But for our young people, this is a problem that's developing in our community right now. Young folks, young kids are getting charged with criminal cases by their decisions around texting and sexting and what they're what they're sending across the internet. And they're using electronic to further their bullying behaviors. Things that we would never say to people, Pastor, face to face. You know, because I say that to you face to face, you may knuckle up on me. But I go get that computer out and I'll send you all kind of crazy stuff. And that's what our kids are doing right now. They're sending messages back and forth to each other and getting people riled up over the weekend so they walk into a school, walk into a business, and then they act a fool. And we got to get our hands around it. Over 80% of our teens use a cell phone regularly, making it the most popular form of technology and the common medium for cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is real. Girls at as least likely as boys to be cyberbullied or the victims. We're seeing a huge increase in the number of young ladies becoming involved in cyberbullying and sending inappropriate texts back to each other. Outside of the cyberbullying, it is the sexting that's really becoming a problem. Young men, young women are sending inappropriate pictures back and forth to each other, call themselves in love until the relationship ends. Then the relationship ends and then they post that picture out there. I deleted it, Mr. John. If you deleted it, it can be retrieved. If you send it, it's going to be retrieved. Don't believe because it's been deleted that it's not out there. We are dealing with issues with young people in this community that has kids are in 11th, 12th grade, and they're still dealing with the same issues that they had with kids in middle school. And let me tell you a quick story, because sometimes we learn from it. I ran into two parents, 31 years old females. They went to Iroquois Middle School when they were in middle school. Now we know Iroquois had been torn down for at least 3 years. They 31. So 15 years ago, 16 years ago, they have not seen each other in 16 years, right? They run into each other in a school while they was putting their kids in 2nd grade. One of them put the hapier snatches on the other boyfriend years ago. They got married. There's no kids shared between them, and they fighting up in the school based on some craziness that happened 15, 16 years. How are we going to deal with their kids? Now that we got their kids, the older kids sending each other inappropriate messages and comments and bullying each other back across the airwaves. Folks, we got a problem in our community. We need to get our hands around it. Texting is part of the modern life. Students are sending thousands of texts daily. They're sending them while they're in school. Parents are saying we need to keep our kids' our kids need to keep their phones with them. They need to keep them cut on so I can get a hold of them in case of emergency. Whatever happened to call the office? We still got phones in the office, don't we, Mr. Hurd? I know you still. Oh, okay. I was just making sure. Whatever happened to call the office? Texting is one of the ways that technology helps to connect us. I believe in technology. I manage I'm the manager of the management information systems for our district, all the computers. So I believe in technology. It is the way to connect with the world. But connecting with the world and everything that's out there in the world may not always be good for us. Technology has this dark side. What you share with others go from private to public very quickly. Students must be taught how to protect themselves from others. You know who you're chatting with on the internet. And we know, y'all think y'all slick. Y'all move from Bebo to MySpace and MySpace to Facebook to Pinterest, to Instagram. The list goes on and on. We smarter than y'all. We one step ahead of y'all. One step ahead of y'all. I had to get my son to understand that, bro. When you switch over, I switched over a week ago. I know what's out there. Well, I ain't see your name. That's because I got a fake name out there because I'm watching what you do. Here's what we meant by sexting. Sexting is sharing sexually suggestive content electronically. Plain and simple. Sending inappropriate messages, inappropriate comments, inappropriate content back and forth across the airways. So how do we start ending this? And again, I said I wanted to be short in the interest of time. Never bully the bully. If you think confronting or bullying the bullying is the way to answer it, it is not. It is not. We do believe in confronting them, but we don't say bully them. There's a way to confront them. Have to share district policies, communities have to come together. It is so important that when our churches have programs like this so that we can hear the message, what needs to be done out in our community, because it helps. There used to be a time where if I did something to Brother Bishop, his mother could call my mother. They have a conversation about what I did, and it can be taken care of. Now, if his mother called my mother, I mean, it'll be like setting off the Hatfields and McCoys. Well, come on down here on the street and getting challenged. So we got to be careful even how we deal with that now. We got to develop a hotspot map and use it to cease and desist at these contracts. We're putting kids on contracts in schools now around bullying, their bullying behaviors. And we're telling them, we're not going to put you out of school, but we may move you somewhere else if you can't get along in the school. I'm getting 1 or 2 individuals in the school. You remove them, put them in another setting, it changes the whole psyche of the whole school. 1 or 2 individuals can tear a school up. Same individuals getting suspended 20, 30 times in a school year. Same individual. Advise staff to watch for evidence of electronic bullying and to report it appropriately to authorities. We got to get our staff in tune. From the superintendent down to the last person hired, everybody has to be in tune to what bullying is, what it looks like in our hallways, and being able to confront it head on. Got to confront it and deal with it. We got to provide staff and parents a listing of potential warning signs for the bullying behavior. Here's why I knew when I realized we had a problem in our community as it relates to bullying. About 4 years ago, I've been very fortunate to travel the circuit and travel the country, work with school districts and meet individuals around the country that work around bullying. And I felt there's a couple guys out there who I consider true experts around bullying and eliminating bullying in schools. So we got one of them to come to Grand Rapids as a favor. I said, I want you to come to Grand Rapids and present to our staff, present to our parents, an important topic around bullying, to give us some strategies on what we can do to eradicate, eliminate, mitigate some of the bullying issues. We had a great turnout with staff only because we paid them to be there, and they had to be there for Staff Development Day. In the evening, we had Ottawa Hills Auditorium book, and we sent out communications, robocall, cards to parents' homes, the parents, kids that were enrolled in the school. And that night, that Wednesday night when we came, or Tuesday night when we came together, we had less than 5 parents show up for the presentation. Knew we had a problem. And on Wednesday morning, here's what some parents called and told me. I had messages left in my voicemail. How dare you do a program like that on basketball night Tuesday, dear? They were upset because we did it on a basketball night. But here's a strategy we need to work. Next time there's the big basketball game in this town and the gym is packed to the hill, how about we cancel the game, put a table in the middle of the court and say, we're going to talk about some behaviors y'all kids doing. That's what we need to do. Trick you into coming in and then talk about what we really need to be talking about, because you need to hear what's going on, what our young people are doing. We've got to remind staff how bullying would manifest itself inside of buildings in form of people's sexual orientation and athletic hazing. We have to encourage the use of student support groups for those who are new to the school and those with issues with anger management. Some of our kids got some anger issues. Some of them do. And we have to teach them how to deal with that and be able to redirect that anger in a positive way. And we have to begin a discussion among our students and staff related to social responsibility at school. And that is the key to eliminating bullying. It's all about relationships. It's all about relationships. Our community needs to practice the Disney model. And the Disney model is simple. The Disney model just says that if you've ever gone to Disney, they make it a point that you're going to see 3 hellos and how you're doing before you get into the park. Good morning. I had to practice the Disney model with my own son, because I never want to send him out of the house upset at me. Because if you send someone out of the house upset with you, you don't know, Jerry, what they're going to do to the next person they see. Amen. So if he didn't take the garbage out the night before, it ain't no big deal to yell at him before he go to school. Right. I can see you when you come home. We have to practice that model in our communities by just simply saying hello to folks. How you doing? How you doing, young man? How was your day? How's your day going? Because we don't know the night they had, the problems they had the night. And we don't know the last time someone said something real positive to them. And we don't know all the struggles that they're having in their lives. And sometimes, Amanda, they may look very, very personable to us, and they may look very happy to us, but inside they're hurting. Unless we develop a relationship with them, we just don't know what's going to happen. And these young kids walk in front of us on a daily basis. And in the black community, we don't want to talk about one of the things that happens in our community. And the other side of homicide is suicide. And we have no idea how many people are taking their lives because of the underlying problem of bullying in our communities. I'm going to share with you just a couple words before I sit down. This young lady's name is Tendera Tatum. She hails from the Rochester Community Schools over in Oakland County. And I'm going to read the whole letter, but I'm going to read some excerpts from it. Tendera's mother is a nurse. Her father is a special education teacher at Martin Luther King High School in Detroit. Mother works at one of the children's hospitals in Detroit. Tendera says her elementary and junior high school life was scattered and unstable, but somehow she managed to stay on track with her education and set goals for herself. Before she arrived in high school, she had attended a couple other schools. She had the opportunity to grow up with the same people in the comfortable surroundings. She was completely upset at one point in her life that she didn't feel like she had some dependability. She didn't feel like she can depend on adults, even her own parents. She was a leader in school, captain of the cheerleading team, very popular, straight-A student. She wrote this autobiography for a scholarship with Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She talks about her plans of being a psychologist and wants to get her PhD. She said as she reflects upon her life at a certain point, she don't regret anything that she did. She wouldn't change anything that's happened to her. She knows there's been some negative influences in her life. She knows there's some baggage in her life. She's a believer. She talks about Christ. Everyone sees her every day. This would be the last thing that Tendera wrote. Because the night after she wrote this and submitted it to Delta Sigma Theta for a scholarship, Tendera went home and killed herself. The thing that they found out when they investigated why that occurred, she was being bullied in the school. She's an African-American female. I had a picture of her, but my program crashed earlier today. There's a lot of Tenderas out here in this community. There's a lot of young people in our community that are struggling, and they're struggling because of bullying. They're struggling because there's people in their lives or people that's just outside the fringes of their lives that make it difficult for them to go to school. It make it difficult for them to concentrate. It make it difficult for them to want to participate in extracurricular activities. Some of our young people just want safe passage. They just want safe passage. They want to be able to get from point A to point B. That's all I wanted in my community. I just wanted safe passage. I knew I lived in a rough community. I knew I could have got involved in some things that were not good for me. But I had to connect with some people and build some relationships with some people. Booker, that gave me safe passage. Amen. No, we gave Jerry safe passage. Amen. We let him come play on our basketball courts in Benton Harbor. He couldn't play though. But we had some rules, and Jerry will tell you about our rules. We had a full court basketball in the backyard of my in-laws' house. There were some rules. You had to pick up paper. You couldn't cuss. And you had to be respectful to others. It was safe passage. It was an opportunity to build relationships with young people. Lindsay, you know about the basketball court. You're from Benton Harbor. Pastor, we had safe passage in our communities so we can go to school and go home without being assaulted. Gangs were not in existence. We've allowed individuals to claim blocks and territories and stuff that they don't even own. Our kids just want safe passage. They want to be able to experience the rivalry, the crosstown rivalry basketball game, and at the end of the game, they want to be able to just go home without any drama. Amen. But we allow the bullies to stand across the street and pop off rounds in the air, understanding that whatever goes up must come down. You know, I talked about witnessing my first homicide at 13. I would go on to see over 100 homicides in my life. I've been to 100 homicide scenes as a police officer, investigating death. And many of those were young people, under the age of 25. When that incident happened to me at Union and Thomas in 1995, and when I made the conscious decision to leave the Grand Rapids Police Department, retire and go work for the schools, I did it for one reason, because I wanted to be able to influence and have a better decision at helping young people make positive decisions in their life. I didn't want to be part of locking them up. I wanted to be a part of helping them to make some positive connections with some positive black men and black women in this community that could impact their lives when there is no significant other role model for them to follow. Now, we don't volunteer for this role model thing, men in here, and I know this is a men's conference. We don't volunteer for role models. You didn't come here today because you didn't have anything else to do. It's the NCAA games and the tournament games are going on. You could be sitting in front of the TVs today. You're here today because God sent you here. All right. You're here today because He's got a challenge on your life. He's put a challenge in your life to hold you accountable for what He has done for you. And we've got to reach back to our young people and pull them up too. And we've got to introduce ourselves to these young men and these young women in here. And ladies, I'm not leaving you out of it. But you know, our problem is not the black female in this community. Our problem has been the lack of leadership by the black male, in my opinion. And this is a male conference, Brother Booker. Yes, sir. So I can talk to the males, right? Yes, sir. So what we've got to do is we got to just stand up and help these young folks. And Carl and I always talk off and on. And I shared a story with Carl once, and I probably shared it with Jerry or Phil, that, you know, I only have one son. And the significance of this is so important. I have no uncles. My father died when he was 47. He has no other sons. My grandfather had 2 sons. My other uncle has no sons. My grandfather had no brothers. Me and my son are the only ones that carry the Johnson's name. If I'll allow my son to get involved in some nonsense, I kill my family's legacy. Right? But it's bigger than my son, Daryl, because it's about who he hang with. And if he hanging with some folks who don't have any care for life and what they put into their body and what they do and how fast they drive. He could be an innocent victim who loses his life based on some nonsense brought onto him by some of his friends. Trey, it's time to get out of the car.
Yes, sir.
It's time to get out of the car. So everybody in this building, females included, young or old, it doesn't matter, reach out to somebody. We can only stop bullying. We begin to embrace those individuals who have been greatly impacted by it, and then give them some power, give them an opportunity, give them some hope to change somebody's life. That's my message to you this morning. Speech, whatever it's supposed to be. But I thank you for the opportunity to get in front of you. I thank your committee for allowing me. I humbly come before you and say thank you. Thank you. Get an opportunity to go a lot of places. But I think the real work has to be done in your own community before you go. Don't go, I ain't trying to repair nobody else's community till mine get fixed.
All right.
You got to fix home before you go out and start trying to work on stuff somewhere else. And I've had a great opportunity to learn a lot. But you know what? I'll be remiss if I didn't try to put what I've learned and what's been input into me back into my own community. There's a booklet that we left that's downstairs. Parents, take one. Kids, take one. There's some talk points in this booklet for you, and that we think that I think will help change the course of your life. Young people, if you're struggling with a bullying issue, reach out to an adult. Talk to your parents. Talk to an aunt. Talk to an uncle. Talk to somebody that you trust. Old folks, if you're a bully, stop it.
All right.
If you're bullying, stop it. Fist, stick, knife, gun. Sticks and stones may break my bones. The words you say to me will impact me for life. Thank you very much.
Amen.